In the heart of post-Civil War America, when the nation was still reeling from the bloodiest conflict in its history, a new kind of legend was born, not from the halls of power or the battlefield, but from the dark corners of the frontier, Jesse Woodson James, a name that would echo through American folklore as both a villain and a hero. And with him, a band of men who became known as the Wild Bunch, the first true outlaws of America's modern age. Jesse James wasn't just a thief, he was a symbol. To some, a rebel against Northern aggression. To others, a cold-blooded murderer. But to everyone, he was unforgettable. This is the story of how Jesse James went from Confederate guerrilla to one of the most feared and admired outlaws in American history. It's a story of loyalty, betrayal, justice, and revenge. But more than anything, it's the story of America's uneasy relationship with its own myths. Before we dive in, as a way of helping our community grow, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's dive in. Jesse James was born on September 5, 1847, in Clay County, Missouri. Raised in a slave-holding family, the Jameses were deeply tied to Southern ideals. Jesse's father, a Baptist minister, died while trying to strike it rich in the California gold rush, leaving young Jesse to be raised by his strong-willed mother, Zerelda. But it was the outbreak of the Civil War that would change everything. Frank James, Jesse's older brother, joined the pro-Confederate guerrilla fighters, most infamously William Quantrill's Raiders. By 1864, Jesse had joined the cause. He rode with Bloody Bill Anderson, another notorious guerrilla leader. Jesse was barely 16. These weren't traditional soldiers. They were bushwhackers, using hit-and-run tactics, ambushes, and psychological warfare. The violence Jesse witnessed and participated in, raids, killings, even scalping, hardened him. It shaped the man he would become. After the war, Missouri was a dangerous place. Former Confederates were disenfranchised, hunted by lawmen, and marginalized. Jesse and Frank, now experienced in violence and loyal only to their own, refused to surrender. For them, the war wasn't over. With the war behind them, Jesse and Frank turned to a new kind of resistance: robbery. Banks, stagecoaches, and railroads became the new battlegrounds. They weren't alone. They soon formed a gang with like-minded ex-Confederates and restless young men. The gang would come to be known as the James Younger Gang, sometimes referred to by folk as the Wild Bunch. Among their most notorious members were the Younger brothers, Cole, Jim, John, and Bob, as well as Clell Miller, Charlie Pitts, and others. Their goal wasn't just survival, it was vengeance, wealth, and rebellion. Their first known robbery took place on February 13, 1866, in Liberty, Missouri. It was the Clay County Savings Association, the first daylight peacetime bank robbery in U.S. history. The gang escaped with over $60,000. Though the James brothers were never formally charged, many believed Jesse was behind it. This wasn't random crime. The gang targeted symbols of Northern victory: banks, railroads, and institutions linked to Union supporters. From 1866 to 1876, the gang robbed banks in Kentucky, Iowa, Alabama, and Arkansas. They attacked stagecoaches and looted trains with military precision. The gang's success made them legends, but it also made them targets. The Wild Bunch was elusive. They had sympathizers in nearly every town they passed through. Their Confederate roots bought them loyalty, and their daring exploits inspired folk songs and tall tales. But every legend casts a shadow. The year 1873 marked a turning point. Jesse and his gang executed their first train robbery near Adair, Iowa. They derailed a Rock Island Line train and looted the express car, making off with approximately $3,000. The media erupted. A train robbery was a new level of boldness and danger. Railroads symbolized modernity, order, and national growth. To attack them was to strike the heart of American progress. From that point on, the Wild Bunch expanded their targets. In 1874, they hit the Gads Hill, Missouri train, forcing passengers to hand over their valuables while Jesse supposedly quoted scripture. They didn't just rob, they staged performances. Sometimes they only robbed the rich, claiming to spare working-class passengers, feeding the myth of Jesse as a Robin Hood. But it was a myth. The gang was ruthless. In 1875, a botched robbery in Columbia, Kentucky, left the town's bank cashier, R.A.C. Martin, dead. The people of Missouri, once sympathetic, began to turn. The Pinkerton Detective Agency was hired to stop them. Alan Pinkerton launched an aggressive campaign, tracking the James and Younger brothers relentlessly. The war had come home. On January 25, 1875, Pinkerton agents threw an incendiary device into the James home. Jesse's young half-brother Archie was killed, and his mother lost her arm. It wasn't just law enforcement, it was personal. In response, Jesse wrote to newspapers justifying his actions. He framed himself as a persecuted Southerner, hunted for his heritage, not his crimes. But the cycle of violence continued. In 1876, the gang planned their most daring heist yet, the First National Bank of Northfield, Minnesota. They believed the bank had ties to Union General and former governor of Reconstruction-era Mississippi, Adelbert Ames, a perfect target for Jesse's continued rebellion. The Northfield raid was a disaster. The citizens fought back. 2 gang members were killed on the spot. The Younger brothers were captured after a desperate 2-week manhunt. Jesse and Frank barely escaped with their lives. The Wild Bunch was shattered. But Jesse wouldn't stop. Despite their crimes, Jesse James and his gang captured the public's imagination like few outlaws before them. The media portrayed Jesse as a Southern folk hero, one who struck back against Northern oppression and fought for the common man. Newspapers and dime novels romanticized their exploits. Ballads, sung by traveling minstrels, told tales of daring robberies and narrow escapes. To many, Jesse was not a villain, but a symbol of defiance. Yet beneath the legend was a man driven by revenge, fear, and survival. His outlaw lifestyle was brutal and dangerous. The constant threat of capture forced Jesse to live a life on the run, cutting ties with family and normalcy. Public opinion was divided. While many admired the daring exploits, others saw the gang as ruthless criminals who endangered innocent lives. This duality, the man versus the myth, would shape how Jesse James was remembered for generations to come. After the disaster in Northfield, Jesse James and his brother Frank went underground. The Wild Bunch, once unstoppable, was shattered. The Younger brothers were imprisoned. Several gang members were dead. But Jesse refused to disappear. Now living as fugitives, the James brothers drifted across Tennessee, Kentucky, and Missouri. They used aliases, changed homes often, and avoided major cities. But Jesse couldn't stay quiet for long. The thrill of notoriety and the need for money kept pulling him back. By 1879, Jesse tried to build a new gang. But gone were the loyal Confederate comrades. These were new men, less disciplined, more reckless. Among them were the Ford brothers, Charlie and Robert. Jesse was getting older, slower, paranoid. He no longer trusted the world around him, and with good reason. Law enforcement had doubled down. Governors, railroad companies, and private detectives all wanted him captured or killed. In 1879, the new gang resumed robberies. The Glendale train robbery, the Winston train robbery, small hits compared to Jesse's heyday, but still enough to make headlines. And they left a trail. Every robbery brought them closer to capture. More than ever, Jesse was isolated. His old allies were dead or imprisoned. Frank, weary of the life, begged him to stop. In 1881, Frank finally walked away. leaving Jesse alone to manage a gang he barely trusted. Meanwhile, Missouri Governor Thomas Crittenden was determined to end the James saga. He authorized a $10,000 reward, dead or alive, for Jesse James. It was a staggering sum, enough to make anyone talk. Robert Ford had joined Jesse's new gang, but he had ambitions of his own. Along with his brother Charlie, Robert secretly made a deal with Governor Crittenden. He would betray Jesse in exchange for a pardon and the reward. On April 3, 1882, Jesse James woke up in his St. Joseph, Missouri home. It was a quiet morning. He ate breakfast with his family. Later, with Charlie and Robert Ford present, he prepared to leave on another robbery. Before leaving, Jesse noticed a dusty picture frame on the wall. He stood on a chair to fix it. With Jesse's back turned, Robert Ford drew his pistol and shot him in the back of the head. Jesse collapsed and died instantly. He was 34 years old. The outlaw king was dead, not in a blaze of glory, but by betrayal. The Fords turned themselves in. They received only part of the reward. Charlie Ford, racked with guilt, died by suicide. Robert Ford was later shot and killed in a Colorado saloon in 1892. Jesse James was buried in Kearney, Missouri. Thousands came to see him. A chapter in American history had closed. Jesse James's death didn't end his story. If anything, it gave birth to the legend. Newspapers across America speculated. Some claimed the man shot in St. Joseph wasn't Jesse at all. Conspiracy theories flourished. The myth of Jesse James grew larger than the man. Hollywood embraced him. He became the star of silent films, Western epics, and dime novels. Songs told of his bravery and cunning. He was transformed into a rebel hero. But historians painted a more complicated picture. Jesse wasn't Robin Hood. He didn't steal from the rich to give to the poor. He robbed for money and killed to survive. Still, to many Americans, especially in the post-Civil War South, Jesse represented resistance. He was a man who never bowed to the Union or Northern institutions. Right or wrong, that symbolism endured. Over 140 years after his death, Jesse James remains one of the most recognizable names in American history. Not just as an outlaw, but as a mirror reflecting how America romanticizes rebellion, reinvents the past, and turns bandits into icons. Jesse James wasn't the first outlaw, but he was the first to become a national celebrity. His story, equal parts fact and fiction, is woven into the mythos of the American West. He was a killer, a rebel, a legend. This was Jesse James and the Wild Bunch, America's first outlaws.